This is the Jura Synchro Podcast.
We have an exciting guest today coming from the United States. This coach is extremely successful on the international stage with multiple World Championship appearances, U.S. national titles, and world medals. Let's welcome Coach Josh Babb to the Jura Synchro Podcast. We are so excited to hear about his experience and what the Skyliners are up to for the 2021-2022 season. Jura Synchro Season 2, Episode 1 starts now.
Today, in the United States, with Jocelyn Song.
Hello, everyone. Today, I am so excited to kick off my first Jura Synchro episode as podcast host and welcome my former coach and my first guest. We have Josh Babb, Director of Skyliners and Head Coach of Skyliners Junior and Senior. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well, Jocelyn. How are you doing?
I am doing so well. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start out by letting the listeners get to know you a little better. Josh, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background as a skater and kind of how you got to where you are today as a coach?
Oh, didn't know that was going to be part of it. But yeah, okay, no problem. So I actually, I'm Canadian. I grew up in a small town called Harbour Grace, Newfoundland. I started skating, at 3 or 4 years old. And it was a family affair. I have 2 sisters, one older, one younger. And we all skated at the local skating rink. And then when I was, 9, 10, my older sister and I would go to Waterloo, Ontario for summer camp. And then at the age of 13, I was 13, she was 14, we were ice dance pair. So we actually moved to Waterloo, and then our family followed shortly thereafter. Had a little bit of competitive success in Canada. I ended up moving training locations to Lake Placid for a year, and then I ended up in Stamford, Connecticut. So then when I retired for amateur skating, I started doing some partnering and choreography in the tri-state area here in New York. And then I sort of stumbled into synchro. Through a coach. Her name was Sylvie Muccio. She was with Team Image at the time. And she brought me in to sort of do some edge classes, and then it graduated into some choreography, and then I branched out into some other teams. And then in 2003, Skyliners approached me to do a junior team, which I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure this is going to fly, but let's give it a go. And the rest is kind of history. So, yeah.
Wow, I actually didn't know a lot of that. Yeah. So, I mean, I always see like the descriptions of your history, but I actually didn't know a lot of that. So that's very interesting. You just kind of dove right into it. Clearly, you have had a lot of success in the past, and I'm sure COVID was one of your biggest obstacles. I'm sure last year was very weird with the U.S. having a ton of restrictions. What was that like, choreographing programs, training, and coaching during COVID? Was there anything particularly difficult that you found or particularly easy?
Oh, God. I mean, I wouldn't describe anything about our first COVID season as easy, because I think everybody was learning how they, while they were moving along. I think, when it first sort of all came to be, I remember being in Nottingham with Junior when we pulled out of Junior World, and obviously that was not a decision that was made lightly. But there was just so much unknown at the time. And then when we got back, what we thought was going to be 2 weeks isolation turned into like months and months and months. So it was very challenging. The first thing was for our tryouts, everything was virtual. So everything had to be video assessed or video reviewed. And it was really hard for some skaters who had been working extremely hard for tryouts, because they had not taken necessarily footage of themselves to send in, because no one knew that things were going to get shut down. So, we were looking at videos from, tests from years ago. So it was kind of not the most ideal situation. Once we were able to get back into the rinks, like most areas, there was the social distancing rules that were in place. And there's a pros and cons to that. Obviously, there's major cons because it's really difficult to. I apologize. It's really difficult to build programs when you're not allowed to connect or touch. Also, getting familiarized with having to wear a mask the entire time. It's funny how everybody got super used to it, and then when the restrictions started to ease a little bit and we were able to train without masks, the way they were breathing was very different. I think they were all used to having nice warm air going into the lungs, and then when they were able to take off the mask, they're like, ooh, this is not what we were expecting, because I think everybody thought it was going to be so much easier, but it just takes a little while to get used to. So I think not knowing how to plan was probably the most challenging part of last season. This season so far has been much easier that way. We've been able to plan. We've been able to do competitions. There has been some sort of normalcy to things, which has been great.
Yeah, and like you just said, know that this season was definitely a little bit more back to normal. Is there anything you are more excited for this season that you missed the most during the COVID season? Internationals, competitions, just anything like that?
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of my international colleagues at competitions. I think it's things we take for granted, when we get to do it every season at the same time. And then last year, obviously, there was that time where we didn't get to see each other. I've been talking to a lot of them, and it seems like everybody's super duper excited to see each other. It's also great just to see the athletes being able to perform. We all do this, we all train hard, and then to train hard and not be able to do what you love to do, which is mostly the performing part. Most skaters I know, they enjoy training. They don't love it though, right? It's the performance that they love.
Right.
Coaches as well. It's tough to train not knowing what's going to be coming around the corner. So being able to have those skaters and teams being able to compete and perform, it's just a great, it's been probably the best part of the season thus far.
Yeah, I definitely missed that, and I actually watched when I came to California, or it's not called California Cup, it's Fall Classic in California. That was super exciting to finally see all these teams perform again. It was very refreshing.
Yeah.
So I definitely missed that too.
Yeah, it was really nice
yeah.
to be able to see. So, Skyliners has a ton of former skaters who actually go to college in California, so it was nice to see everybody as well. I also got to see some alumni parents, so it's amazing because that network sort of disappeared for kind of a year. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. Great. And then, so do you have any concerns about some of the restrictions or countries shutting down or people getting COVID during competition later on in the season?
Yes, I am concerned. I feel like I was so really optimistic and hopeful, and I still am. I just, with the introduction of the Omicron variant, I try not to watch too much news because it drives me batty. But what I am reading and hearing right now, it does gives me a cause for concern. On a personal level, I have numerous friends who are all fully vaccinated and boosted, like myself, who are actually contracting the virus and testing positive. So it's going to be a logistical challenge as we move forward, unless this variant is to just blow through very quickly. But there's concern. Yeah, there's concern, but everybody is really doing everything they can to make this work. So we have meetings all the time on the best way to make sure the team's able to get to the competition and how to keep them safe while at the competition. There's no absolute answer, but I do feel like we are doing everything we can to make sure that we can continue to have a decent season this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely unfortunate timing with the Omicron variant, but crossing my fingers for you guys, and I hope there's an international season so I can watch all the competitions.
Yeah.
and all the teams skate. Coaching some of the world's best junior and senior teams can be quite challenging. Let's get a deeper look into this year's programs and what it's like to be a coach. So, tell me about the process of creating a program from the first idea to the final stage of choreographing. How does that work with two people? Do you tend to work together, or is there one mastermind? And of course, we're supposed to have our second guest, Coach Pam May, but she cannot join us today. So, Coach Josh, why don't you tell us about that process?
Yeah, so every year is a little bit different. So usually the ideas for programs start well before the previous season has finished, and since COVID season wasn't a true competitive season, it sort of gave me an opportunity to be much more thoughtful and creative in my music choices and ideas around the programs. So if I were to start with junior, I carried over the program that we created as a team, the Hallelujah Short program, because I really felt like this is a program that needs to be seen by an audience. It creates a certain feel. It's a program that this team is very comfortable performing. It's very natural for them. So I felt like this is something that they should keep for this season, to have an opportunity to show it to people rather than just quick video clips online. Their long program this year, I really decided to go out of the box a lot more with the creativity and the theme. What I did was I was listening to a bunch of different musics, and as I was listening, thinking about how I could build a program, and I had this idea about Gemini and the two personalities of the Gemini zodiac sign. So that sort of became the inspiration for this program. And if you watch the program, there are a lot of times when there's a lot of mirror imaging things where you see basically two faces or two sides playing off each other. And that's been the inspiration for that program. Also, not that anybody's gonna be able to see this because it's so detailed, but on their costuming, if you see from the two sides, if you imagine the two faces or the shoulders looking at each other, and then you actually see a row of rhinestones reaching to the middle of the collarbone, and that's supposed to be the two hands meeting of the two faces of Gemini. A little deep, but it's actually been very interesting and something very different. Like Skyliners Junior has always done very obvious themes, and I wanted to try something different. And it's the first two competitions this season. They're getting their skates more comfortable with this program, and we decided to forego the porter competition to really get some work done. And now I'm seeing a huge improvement in this group and their understanding and development of the program. So it's actually very exciting.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. I love this year's programs also, and I loved watching them in California. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about seniors program?
Yeah, so senior, actually, we started with senior long this year. And the idea actually came from a couple of our senior skaters. So, I often bring on music onto the ice during drills, whatever, in the early spring, to sort of get a feel on how the team is relating to music. But they brought me these pieces of music, and the theme was sort of obvious, right? It's somebody's watching me. So it's about a relationship or your psychological interpretation of a relationship, where somebody's watching you and then you're falling in love, then you realize that that person's not the right person for you. So it's actually really interesting watching that develop. And they took ownership of that program from day one, which I really found it was so easy to choreograph because they were just so involved with the idea behind it. And their short program came along after the long program. I was toying with different types of music. Then I found a really good rendition of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And I just felt like, these young this year on senior, it's all young women. I feel like they, everything that's happening in the world, it's so empowering to watch them be able to do what they do and to do it so well. So I thought it was an appropriate song for the short program, and that program's also coming together quite nicely. So,
yes, definitely also love the senior programs as always. So very exciting to hear all this backstory. I don't usually get to, I mean, when I skate for you and I'm part of the program, it's just not, you don't have that outside perspective. So that's very interesting to hear as a spectator now this season. Okay, so when you go into a practice or a competition, is there any particular way you organize a practice or a specific way you feel like you coach? Is there like an agenda, or is it more just like we'll feel it out?
No, there's definitely usually a plan in place. It really all depends on what I feel like needs to be focused on during that practice, whether it's just to make the team feel comfortable before a performance, or if it's to focus on something that needs to be fixed in order to be more comfortable for the performance. So yeah, when I go into a practice, I usually have a plan in place on how sorry, I apologize, my battery's going low on my computer here, on the plan of what we're going to do.
Got it. Okay. And then when you, like, obviously junior and senior teams are going international, they're competing against all these different countries. Keeping that in mind, do you think that that changes the way you coach compared to, for example, like a novice team that will only be competing against teams in the United States?
Yes and no. I mean, I think every team inspires other teams with their creativity. I do find, though, the most important thing to do when preparing for international competition is really to focus on your job and what you need to be doing. I think sometimes we can get wrapped up too much in how somebody has the upper hand, or you feel like you have the upper hand. And I think if you just focus in on your vision of the program, everything sort of has a way of working out.
One last question for you is, what is your most memorable moment as a coach? And it can be something that's funny or proud, or it can even be something that's not so positive but taught you a lot.
Oh, that's a loaded question, because there are so many times. I mean, it goes from when I coached the intermediate team to them winning their first national medal, to like Skyliners' first national title at junior, and then like obviously the world medals are pretty special. But besides that, I mean, like I tend to learn so much just from my athletes, and as I get older, I seem to learn more, if that makes any sense. I just feel like coaching for me has been an evolution, and now like it's the little things that I learn from my athletes now, which I find very impactful on my life, honestly. So yeah, I just feel like there's been so many. I mean, like I learned things from the skaters, younger and older. I also, being director, I've learned so much about being a director during COVID. Like from the management standpoint, it's been really different. So it's been interesting.
I've definitely learned a lot also as a skater, just from like the synchro world, practices, performing, etc.
Usually you watch synchro. Now you may hear it.
We've gotten an insider experience about what it is like to be a coach. Now let's talk about the international stage. First up, how would you describe the US style of synchro compared to different countries?
That's an interesting question. I don't think there's necessarily a one individual style in the United States. I think teams in the United States, it's sort of a eclectic group of different styles. Like if I were to think about the top teams right now in both junior and senior, I think the styles are all different from each other. So I don't think you can really state how's the U.S. style different from everybody else, because I think it sort of is similar to other countries and different from other countries.
Got it. Yeah, definitely. It's especially in the U.S. because we are such a big country and a lot of different teams from different areas. It's definitely easy to see these unique differences. And then what is your favorite program that you've ever seen of all time? Just kind of getting a deeper look into what you love about synchro.
Oh gosh. I mean, there are.
You can list a few.
I was going to say, I can't just do one.
Yeah, list a few. I definitely have like my list of favorites.
Oh God, you're going to put me on the spot here. I don't know if I could really give you. I mean, we could be here all day. I do enjoy. I'll take this question in a little bit of different direction. I do enjoy the commitment to character that Marigold normally does. You know what I mean? Like if you look at some of their programs, you just think, wow, they really commit to what they're doing. I love a lot of the clever aspects of different teams. I love the skating commitment from Paradise in almost everything they do. So I think if you, there's so many good things to take from so many great teams and countries and programs. I mean, there's just so much. So I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I know. I totally understand. No, I totally understand. I feel like that's why it's so interesting to like watch an international competition, and like one of the reasons why I'm really excited to watch live streams, or like I'll be going to Junior Worlds this season. But every single team has like something that they're so good at, and it's really exciting to watch them all compete and bring it all together into one competition. Okay, and then you kind of talked a little bit about how you were excited to see your friends internationally when you go to competitions. Is there something you learned from other international coaches when you see them? Or do you often work together or stay in contact? Do you ever contact them if you have issues with programs? Is it a helpful community? And then I know you touched on this, but how fun is it to see your old friends and other coaches at internationals?
Yeah, I mean, I, as a coach, when I first came on the international scene, I was such a young coach, and I learned so much from the other international coaches. And the one thing about synchro, it's a very all-encompassing group. You know, there's everybody just sort of takes everybody in, and it becomes a real sort of family. So yes to all those questions. I mean, we often talk regarding issues that we have with programs or elements. We also often at competitions will watch each other's stuff and tell each other what we are seeing. You know, yeah, I think that's kind of normal. I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody in person, because it's just going to be so nice to be able to, you know, get back to that level of normalcy as well. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really miss all my friends who I used to see at international competitions, and now that I'm not skating anymore, it's definitely going to be harder to do that, but I'm still in touch. So that's something that I really appreciate about the skating community, even after I've finished skating competitively.
The Jura Synchro Podcast. It's the final part.
Let's finish off the episode with a little rapid fire game. First question to you. Favorite element to coach?
Moves.
Ooh, okay. That's so fun. And then do you like sleeping on the plane or watching movies?
Depends on how tired I am. Usually, depending if it's one of the later internationals, it's definitely sleeping. Earlier international, I usually have more energy to watch the movies.
Okay. What's your favorite way to de-stress from skating?
Go on a walk with my dog.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have a new Cocker Spaniel. Her name is Skylar. Yeah. So.
No, it's a very cute dog. I've seen photos of it. How come you don't bring your dog to competitions?
Oh, I mean, number one, no. I mean, she's not a registered emotional support animal, so she couldn't go with me anywhere, and I wouldn't leave her in the hotel because the people around the hotel. She's a barker, so she likes to bark and howl. So that would not be a good combination.
And then early practices or late practices in the day?
Midday. I like midday practice.
Midday.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest though, I am more of a morning person, so I do enjoy getting up and getting work done and then being able to move on with the day.
Favorite current TV show or movies that you're watching?
God, I feel like this has been asked to me before. And I keep going back to the same one because I'm watching the series again. Madame Secretary on Netflix. I really enjoyed that. And of course, I've been putting off watching the last season of Schitt's Creek. So I'm going to actually do that probably during this season. Catch up on those episodes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then last but not least, what is your favorite international competition?
Oh, I mean, I think when it comes to the energy, and I think most people would feel the same way with the energy of the crowd, French Cup.
Thank you, Coach Josh Babb. I know there's a lot of skaters out there that want to coach after being an athlete, so if you're out there, here's a little inside look on what being a coach is like. Stay tuned for next episode and watch my lovely co-host, Sophie, take the mic.
Jura Synchro Podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. The musical theme of this show was created by Scatmix.pro and Carl Hugo.